When the sun sets, the undead awaken. To slake their hunger, they feed upon the herd of unaware mortals. Right beneath our noses, the kindred clash against their rivals as they vie for control of the city of San Francisco. Are you strong enough to cheat Final Death and see another night? Vampire the Masquerade Rivals expandable card game from Renegade Game Studios.
Welcome, everyone, to Vampire Wednesday, back after a little hiatus here. I am Matt Holland, hanging out with Matt Hyra. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
I hear that rather than bringing home board games, you brought home something else from Gen Con.
Yeah. The best thing possible. I brought home a case of COVID, so that's great. I was wearing my mask all the time, except at restaurants, but I guess and I had never caught it before, so I didn't really know. I thought maybe I just had muscle aches from being on my feet constantly, but oh boy, yeah.
Which the muscle aches are definitely a Gen Con thing, but at some point you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is something else.
Yeah, I've been testing negative now after testing positive for a week. So jeez. I still have a lingering cough. So hopefully that won't show up too much tonight, but we'll see.
Well, as far as I know, the community largely came through Gen Con unscathed. Nobody got seriously ill. We did have a demo team member from Renegade who is stuck in Indianapolis for 10 days. They get to go home to Canada tomorrow, finally. So wow. I sent him a nice little care package of goodies because that's not where I want to spend my Gen Con recovery week. But we're going to be talking all about Gen Con, what happened there, some of the meta, give a shout out to our different winners. But we have a little bit of news before that. Of course, we are in the tail end of the Prince of the City season here overseas now. So September 3rd, Prince of the City, Madrid. This is a 1v1 tournament. So it's the only Prince event this year that is run that way. So just be aware if you're attending. It's a little bit different meta than what you might be seeing at other tournaments. September 10th at Fanboy 3 in Manchester, England. And September 11th in Brussels, Belgium. So you still have a chance to get out there and win a Prince title, get some of those great prizes, and, of course, play with the great Rivals community. On more general OP news, I know folks are waiting for news on the European Conclave. I'm still working on that. It has been a real bear. We will definitely be having an event for you, and I will share details as soon as we can. Also, news on next year's Prince of the City cycle will be coming fairly soon as well. People who are waiting for the new organized play kits, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6, those should be shipping very soon. I know in the US, they just arrived in a container, so takes a week or two to get into the system and to start shipping out. But that'll be new promos, new prizes, and those great acrylic tokens for your local community to compete with. And then last but certainly not least, the Clan Clash Organized Play Kit will be up for order for stores in the next week or so. This one will be a little bit different from the regular ones. If you're a non-store group that wants to run it, you'll need to reach out to me, even if you do have access to the general OP kits yet. This is a more limited than the general OP kit event, but much less limited than Prince. I just want to make sure that they're going to places where they'll be used and be promoted and help grow the community. So matt.holland@renegadegames.com, as usual, if you want one of those. Beyond that, Gen Con. Gen Con was just 2 weeks ago now, and was, I thought, a fantastic time overall. Matt, how about you?
It was really great. Seeing everybody who we converse a lot with on the Discord, and just watching people who have traded strategies and deck building advice finally come together and meet for the first time face to face was really, really fun to see.
Yeah, one thing that I thought was awesome, in addition to the organized play events, Rivals had an extraordinarily strong demand for demos, and we sold a ton of core sets and expansions to new players at Gen Con. At this point, Gen Con is usually about demoing just the latest hotness. You don't see people, showing up to demo something that came out, a year and a half, 2 years ago, typically. But we had a line to demo Rivals and had to keep adding demoers for it. It was really exciting to see that.
Yeah, that should translate into some extra players next year, actually.
That's what I'm hoping.
And to the local events.
Yes. So keep an eye on the Looking for Group channel in the Discord. New players can go there and try to find who's playing in their area and get some more practice and prepare for next year. But speaking of new players, we kicked things off at Gen Con on Thursday with a new player-focused pre-con deck event. And this, I thought, was great and did exactly what we wanted. We had 20 new players. They were, I think, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, all brand new to any sort of competitive play.
Yeah, they may not have played in tournaments before. We did have a couple people who who brought their own constructed deck because they thought that pre-constructed meant construct it before you show up, which sure. I can see that. So we will need to use slightly different language should we use that event again, like a factory, a factory monoclan, deck as they appeared in a box, something a little more descriptive. But, they pivoted very quickly to grabbing a pre-con and had a lot of fun.
Yeah, what I thought was cool was a lot of people, there were some people who had kickstarted the game, but had never played anywhere but their kitchen table or never played except with their spouse or their family. Other people who'd had the game for a while and it just had been, not quite ready to jump into the deep end of things. But that intro event was a great way for them to get started. And that went really, really smoothly.
Yeah. The four player experience when you've only played, with your spouse or kid brother, very different. And it really solidified a lot of people as fans of the game now.
And we even had a couple of them then immediately sign up for the Continental Conclave, which happened on Friday. So awesome to see the new players immediately convert over to, quote unquote, the big show. Cool. But speaking of the Continental Conclave, it was the bigger and grandest level of organized play for Rivals so far. We had 44 players from all over the United States, including 10 different princes in attendance, and actually princes of 11 cities, because we did have Allie there, who is Prince of Fort Collins and San Diego. Mm-hmm. And we did have Mr. Fuji came over from Australia, so we had a little bit of an international contingent there too, representing some of the players overseas. So that was pretty exciting. And for the princes, Matt, you guys did a neat little thing. Can you tell me a little bit about that and what was done with them?
Well, in addition to free entry into the event and some drinks that we kept cool in a cooler for them throughout the weekend, the princes were given the opportunity to come up with ideas for the next Prince of the City card. So for the next city we do after Prague, we are currently testing the ideas that they came up with during the Conclave event. So we wanted the political nature of princes getting together at a conclave to actually turn into something tangible for the game. So it was interesting to see them jockeying to convince people to sign on to their idea. And we had like 8 or 9 different ideas, and we're testing the top ones that got the most signatures. And you will see that on a future Prince of the City card.
And that's, to be clear, that's not a Prince, like a Prince winners card. That is the actual Prince of the City deck title.
Yeah, the title that appears in the city deck, right? So they do various things. Previously they've been like zero secrecy, some influence, and some kind of agenda / prestige ability. So who knows? So we're currently testing, and we'll see if we end up with something similar or something completely in left field.
I know that some of the ideas were pretty wild. I just glanced through them, and we were sitting there at the tournament headquarters. So excited to see where that goes. And a cool privilege for the princes to get to weigh in and kind of put their stamp on the game, in addition to the characters that we're working on.
Yep.
So the Conclave, we ran 4 rounds of Swiss pairings, and that gave us a top 16, which would take place the next day. But we're going to do a little bit of a meta breakdown here. If Katie can throw up my screen on the Twitch. Talking about overall clan popularity This was a little different than what we saw in the Prince of the City events, which makes sense. There's a lot of new cards in play at Gen Con between the altered city deck. It's first off, new city deck for Prague. Then that city deck is also altered by the Conclave cards replacing the events and all the new player cards in Heart of Europe. So a lot of sort of meta shakeup, and that gave us, I think, a pretty even split of clans. Matt, overall, all in the same ballpark.
It's I mean, you can see right there, everybody got a slice of the pie. It's understandable. Like Tremere is the lowest at 6%. Granted, they are the only clan with blood sorcery so far, and people do tend to like to mix their decks, and so there's really not a great mix for them right now. But obviously, when another clan comes out that has blood sorcery, that the Tremere should pick up.
And then just real quick, the sort of the top picks from those: Gangrel, Trinity, Voss, and Tamaska. Not really a huge surprise there. We've kind of seen that in the Prince of the City events. Malkavian, Inmate, 7459. What's the number?
745943.
The only inmate we have, which I will point out, Mr. Fuji cosplayed as, which was pretty awesome to see.
That was.
And then as well as Jesus. Inmate also the number one most popular vampire overall, just barely edging out a couple of others. Toreador saw Lishu, Bongcha Park, Bunny, and Liza Holt. Hikata, Annika, Bianca, and Nathaniel. Nosferatu, Kim Fan, and Clandestine were the top picks. Bruja, Flick, and Smoke. So Smoke was very popular in Prince of City events, and at least in the top 4 decks that we were analyzing. And he shows up here as one of the more popular Brujas. Thinbloods. Now, Thinbloods was a surprise to me. We didn't see a lot of Thinbloods at all in Prince of the City, and here they were competitive with Frog and Jacob showing up pretty regularly. I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, there were a couple of dedicated Thin Blood decks, but there were some decks that splashed Frog or Jacob just for their abilities, where you may have only had 2 Thin Bloods in your entire faction.
Yep. La Sombra, Mei Yingying, Gia, and Juan Carlos Diaz. Ventru saw Victor Temple and Montgomery White. Victor has been a popular card, really since he came out. As one of the promos there, and continues to show up. And then Tremere, it was Darius and Lorenzo. Now we also have, I'm trying to make this not be a weird aspect ratio because the graph is a little squished, but that's fine. Over to the top 16, and we see things change a little bit. So Gangrel goes up in its representation. Most things do, other than Bruja, Nosferatu, and Tremere, but Ventru goes way up. The Ventru went from 8% to 15%. So Ventru clearly being run by the players who really know what they're doing and being used to kind of greatest effect there. Why do you think that is, Matt? Do you have any insight?
Well, possibly there were some title decks, actually. I don't recall how many were in the top 16. There were a couple because with Base of Power and the Prince of the City Prague, that's a very quick 4 agenda if you can take the Prince title. Two from the Prince of the City card and 2 from Base of Power. So I think people realized that explosive title agenda was going to be a good way to go. So and I think that Montgomery got splashed in some decks for the protection against Molotov cocktails and whatnot. So
AJ Valley brought a Base of Power deck to the top 16, so that is probably a large portion of those.
Could be.
But yeah, that was our breakdown. Cool to see it kind of change there going into the top 16. There was only one. Oh, go ahead.
Just real quick. I believe that the number 1 deck on day 1, meaning that I think there was a 10-point deck. It was a kind of an old school scheme deck. It barely used any cards other than out of the core, and it ended up as the number 1 card, number 1 deck on day 1. So I think people have started to, recognize that schemes can do pretty well, and so some of the influence characters are going to be found in Ventru, and so there you go.
Well, you can say largely the top picks were pretty equivalent, even in the top 16. Nosferatu, there were only 3: Bobby Handsome, Clandestine, and Thora. Each picked once, all in different decks. So no deck in the top 16 ran more than one Nosferatu. And then Tremere had 1 appearance with Alistair.
Oh, okay.
The top 16 most played, the most played vampires in the top 16, still Inmate, but also tied with Trinity and Jacob Frost, 4 decks each. So Jacob Thinblood's showing up pretty regularly in the top 16. Pretty cool to see.
Yeah. But actually, the fact that those top ones only appeared 4 times each means that a lot of different vampires were getting played. And that is pretty good for the game. You can some of that is probably people trying to avoid uniqueness. So maybe they're not running the most popular, or especially the card that they know that their friend is running, just in case. But it's just great that so many characters are actually part of people's strategies and are definitely working out.
Yeah, it was really cool to see just the variety. And that kind of continued. I mean, last year, top 4 was 3 Hunt the Hunters and something else. This year, top 4 was completely different. We'll get to that here in a minute. But let's talk about agenda popularity. So the only agendas in the game, I believe, that we did not see show up at the tournament were Full of Surprises, which is one of the 2 brand new ones. Drain Them Slowly, Recruitment Drive, Call of the Wild, and Most Impressive. Everything else was played at least once across the field.
There wasn't a Recruitment Drive? Huh.
Not, at least according to my data that I entered there at the table.
Okay.
I may not be perfect, but I don't think so.
I may have seen it, but it may have been a different event.
One of the side events or something.
It's hard to remember exactly.
Yes, it can kind of blend together, especially after a week like Gen Con. We had Animal Kingdom. It was the most popular agenda. 5 decks running that. 4 running
this
Turf.
This is for the Swiss. Yeah, the Swiss.
This is for Swiss. Yep. 4 running Turf War and Invisible Army. And then 3 each for Base of Power, Hunt the Hunters, Hoard the Herd, Prize Fighter, and Disheveled Shelves. Disheveled Shelves, another brand new one, and that is the alternate win condition, sort of mill win condition deck. So pretty cool to see. And then in the cut, Hunt the Hunters, we had 3 in the top 16. Only 1 made the final table. 3 Invisible Army as well. 2 Animal Kingdom, so we had a lower conversion rate for those guys. And then 1 Disheveled Shelves deck did also make the cut and even the final table. So again, really pretty strong diversity of agendas. More than we saw last year. Granted, there's a lot more choices this year. But I think the combination of all the new cards in Heart of Europe and the alternate city deck events kind of blew the meta wide open for this. It was very much not a solved, quote unquote, meta, I think, in most people's opinion. Which made that pretty cool. Tamir Love tonight is live. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them and we'll try to answer. Then over to the Havens. Havens was a little bit not shocking given what we saw in Prince of the Cities. University Library showing up 9 times and Dragon's Roost 8. Cards are always powerful in a card game, and the ability to block those attacks whenever you want to makes Dragon's Roost a very attractive haven, regardless of what you're kind of trying to accomplish with your deck. And then that was 9 and 8, and we went down to 3. Nobody else had more than 3. Big House, Tenderloin, and Eternal Life Mortuary each had 3 copies ran.
Yeah.
Shagatai, not a fan of Dragon's Roost. I think somebody has probably been blocked a couple times. A couple times too many. Terma Love asking about the European Conclave. I am sorry, we are still trying to nail down a good date and location for that. There definitely will be one, and I will share it as soon as we can. I know people are hyped, especially having seen the fun at Gen Con, and we are committed to bringing you guys the same, great experience and great fun in Europe. It is just more difficult than than I would like it to be. And then we go to the cut. Dragon's Roost still shows up 5 times. University Library 3, Tenderloin 2, and then you've got Big House, Eternal Life Mortuary, Mission Cemetery, The Pit, Artist Lofts, and Royal Retreat, each showing up once. So Havens and everything really does continue to be relatively spread out, other than Dragon's Roost and University Library, which people know are good and are just great toolbox havens.
Yeah.
Anything surprising about those to you, Matt, that you didn't expect or were pleased to see?
Well, that's kind of what was expected. I was actually happy to see the Big House show up there for a little bit of diablerie, just to have that threat at the table, and I'm glad that it wasn't like 12 people all playing the Big House. So apparently diablerie is in about the space where we wanted it to be. It's not super easy to do, but it is worthwhile if you can make it happen. And so that's a good one.
Oh, that's awesome. Then we did have our top 16, and that brought us to our top 4, who I've got here to share with you. Stephen Whitman, Brad Eman, Michael Croker, and Daniel Trujillo. Here were our top 4 going into the final table on, Saturday? Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah.
Man, it's what a long time. And then here is the actual action at the final table. Bunch of players and judges here standing around watching. If you have not seen this game or want to see some of the other Gen Con action, Alex Mary of What We Do in Elysium did record the games here. You can see the microphone and camera set up, so you can check that out on their YouTube channel. Pretty awesome that they were able to do that and make those games available to people who were not there. The other cool stat that I pulled, now this is only from the top 16, only the cut, the most common library cards. So Biting Comet was the big one for Prince of the City events. Like, it just seemed to be in all the top 4 decks. But here, a brand new card from Heart of Europe, Fortify the Inner Facade, was the most common in 10 of the 16 decks. It's versatile. It's what, mental and social reaction?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
And that's the one that lets you, if you're going to lose.
Because those are the attack types that are likely to do some prestige drain. Yeah.
And it allows you to gain prestige before you get drained, correct? Or if that doesn't happen, then you can just +1 defense.
+1 defense if you have fortitude. And that was one of the surprises, that people were valuing fortitude pretty highly. It's obviously a more defensive discipline, and people were liking it for that reason, it seems. Yep.
We also saw the last word in fully half of the top 16. Biting Comet had dropped all the way down and was only in 7 decks, along with Intimidation. And then you saw Feral Fangs, Interrogation, and Irresistible Voice, along with Tenebrous Avatar in 6 decks. The Tenebrous Avatar from Shadows and Shrouds, another really solid reaction, right?
Yeah. If you've got Oblivion and an agenda to spare, you can probably save a character pretty quickly. So I most of the time people would rather keep their 5+ BP character alive, even at the cost of 1 agenda, and that's the card to do it.
I think Feral Fangs, its popularity fueled by the popularity of Gangrel in general, just makes sense to run that.
Yeah.
And at that final table, Danny Trujillo proved victorious and was awarded the title of Justicar of North American Conclave. So Danny ran Hunt the Hunters and Dragon's Roost, and really well played final by all, and managed to take home the win. So
for those who like Chagatai77 there, who say, "Oh, I hate Dragon's Roost because I don't like getting blocked," Danny used it 1 time during the final. So maybe it wasn't as needed, but it was not a deciding factor.
Well, there you go. It was really, really pretty cool to see, just again to see it played sort of en masse and with all these new cards. Just a wildly different game than we saw last year at Gen Con. And huge congratulations to Danny for the win there. But we weren't done. That was just the end of the main event, but we still had more side events to keep people entertained and busy.
We should mention that Danny is going to get a vanity card with a Just-A-Card title on it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So just like a Prince winner, the Conclave winners will get a card design and be turned into a vampire that can be played on the table. Sokatep bringing up a great point that just having a Dragon's Roost on the table does change the dynamics of play. And like you kind of have to always play as if it might be used. So that's a good point.
It is.
It is a very interesting card, and even if you're using it, knowing when to use it is, I think, a big skill too. And obviously, Danny had nailed that skill down. After we wrapped up that top four, we went over to a 1v1 event, so something completely different. Maybe a little preview of what you're going to see at the Madrid Prince of the City. So if you want, you can actually find the deck lists that were played in the 1v1 on the VampireRivals.com website and take a look at some of those. But we had 16 players play 1 versus 1, and it came down to a community member who you've probably mostly heard of, Coyote, or Awesome is Coyote, I think maybe he used to be Awesome is Coyote, Jacob Martin, and Leanne LaFollette, the Prince of San Antonio, playing 1v1. Here is the final table with Matt and another judge looking on. They each took home one of these cool title fight playmats, and Leanne proved victorious. He was running Animal Kingdom and a 100% Gangrel deck. So every vampire in their Gangrel. Coyote was running an interesting deck with Most Impressive, and then Dragon's Roost. It was a mix of Bruja and Nosferatu.
Heavy hitters.
Yes, yeah, and I think he was designed to just keep their opponent from doing whatever they were trying to do and just kind of grind out points over turn.
Yeah. It ended up where he may have had a few too many reactions in his deck against a deck that wasn't planning on doing too much direct attacking. So
always hard to tell when those 1v1s, because man, it can just be so different from a multiplayer game. But I'm glad we were able to have an event for that and give people the opportunity to play in that different style. And then Sunday, let me just make sure I know what pictures. Oh, here we have a shot of Leanne, our 1v1 winner, spotting one of those great deck boxes that the top four from the Conclave also brought home. Those are leather wrapped, foil embossed, really cool Rivals deck box from our friends at Elderwood Academy. There was also participation prizes, agenda tokens from the people over at Curled Paw Creatives, and then top 8 and top 16 prizes from Warsenal, which makes really beautiful full color acrylic tokens. No spoilers. Then last event we had was Sunday. We had a team event. So we put those team rules out on the stream a couple months ago. I know that the folks over in Edinburgh at Nightly Gaming ran a team event kind of as a test. Just tried out those rules already. But this was the first one that we ran ourselves. I think overall went really well. Did learn a couple things to incorporate into the team rules and just clean them up, tighten them up a little bit. And we had some really fun team names. There was Team Shelves, which, as you might imagine, was running Disheveled Shelves. Mr. Lopez and his bodyguard. The Lore Masters, and I really enjoyed Horde the Hunters. Just like it does exactly what it says on the tin. But the winning team was Team Infinite Rex, consisting of our Rivals power couple, Robert Jordan and Ali Cavassini. That is 3 princes in 2 people. Ali, as we've mentioned before, Prince of Fort Collins and San Diego, and Robert, Prince of Burbank. So they're a big part of the SoCal Rivals community. Do a lot of gaming, a lot of practice, and it paid off. They took home the team title, and they also got a set of those title fight playmats. So yeah, fantastic turnout. Everybody was just superb to talk to see playing the game. Great sportsmanship, great camaraderie from everyone. I had a fantastic time. I mean, Matt, anything that from you that you want to call out or share that was particularly cool?
Yeah, there weren't any problems. We had one official warning given out for a deck list error, and that was it. So great sportsmanship all around, and great new rules knowledge too.
Yeah, and it was just awesome to meet a lot of people who I'd dealt with online and had talked to, in some cases, many times or interviewed. Like actually get to see them hanging out, having a good time. But I particularly want to thank the whole team that kind of made it possible over there in the tournament area. So from left to right, we've got Dan Blanchette, developer here at Renegade. He was the designer of the second expansion.
Yeah, Wolf and the Rat, and
Wolf and the Rat,
and was the co-designer of the core set. Yeah,
and then we've got Alex, Evan, Jason, Tobin, Angus, Matt Hyra, and myself. Super team that worked really hard to make all these events go off very smoothly. I know I had a lot of time being there. I think the judges had a great time judging and just interacting with everyone. Alex was able to film those games and put them up on YouTube. So I want to thank not only the players but also the team that did the work behind the scenes, making things go really very, very smoothly. And I know I'm looking forward to doing it again next year, and before that, doing it in Europe. Hopefully, go over there and get to hang out with some players there and run a great tournament there too.
Yeah.
But that means, we've been talking about it a lot, and I know certain folks in the community have been very, very eager. What are we going to talk about next week, Matt?
Well, I think we might start up some previews of the next expansion, the Dragon and the Rogue. So we won't even. I think some people saw some stuff at Gen Con. There were a couple
the box was on display, and you could see
was there, so you could see on the back. So we've got the Ravnos and the Smeetsy. So we're gonna take our time, revealing cards here. So don't expect to see an entire clan in one episode. We're gonna troll you along for a bit.
And more troll doing multiple meetings there for certain community members who are very eager. But we also should have the pre-orders open on Wednesday too. So we're going to start previewing and also start letting you order the Dragon and the Rogue, the next expansion for Rivals, which is going to just continue to mix things up and give new possibilities for everyone. But I'm excited to see those. Like as usual, I have not looked ahead to see what all these cards do. So it's always really fun to just kind of think of all the possibilities and weird edge cases that come up in my mind.
And Dan Blanchette was lead designer on this one. So that's his second solo set. So maybe we'll see if he's got time to join the broadcast. We'll try to get Dan on here to talk a little bit about them and hang out, because I know some of you guys got to meet him at Gen Con, but Dan is also a great designer and of course very, very knowledgeable about these new cards. Jason asking the ETA on Dragon and the Rogue release date. That is supposed to be late this year. As every time I've given hard dates for anything, I've gotten burned. I'm a little bit hesitant to do that until they're in the United States. We don't have a hard date. We have not even a hard month. It's like October, November. We can't even say.
It's one of those things, like if you paid attention to the Heart of Europe, that came to the United States and sat in a depot or yard in Chicago for weeks waiting for a truck to be able to pick it up because there just weren't chassis available, which blows my mind. But I know like the people whose job it is to handle this stuff, like, yep, that's just common right now, which is why it barely made it out before Gen Con. So planning for this year, this year, we're going to start teasing it and have it up for pre-order. So that is it for tonight, everyone. Thanks so much for being patient. We wanted to do this last week, but between Matt having COVID and some of my family members having it, just wasn't really in the cards, so to speak. And so we've took the time, pulled some cool data together. I hope that is useful to you when you're looking at maybe what you want to experiment with or try. If you're going to one of these upcoming Princes of the City events, thinking about what this new meta is a little bit, and maybe give you some pointers. The deck lists are all up on the website, so you can go in there and see not only the top 16, but all of them, plus the 1v1. And I hope that is all helpful and interesting to you folks. But as always, if you have questions or issues or anything, reach out to myself and or the other Matt on Discord. We are always in there and happy to chat. And I hope that everyone has a great evening and can tune in later at 7 p.m. Pacific to watch a Hunter the Reckoning character creation stream if you're at all interested in the World of Darkness role-playing games. So Hunter is not vampires. It is humans who have become aware of the greater World of Darkness, the things that go bump in the night, like the reason like homeless people are just disappearing in the neighborhood, that sort of thing, and it feels some sort of drive to deal with it. So it's a little bit more like, I don't know, gritty, realistic sort of take on it, but still takes place in the same world as Vampire the Masquerade. So cool. Katie and I think Deanna D'Amico, our storyteller for our live plays, will be doing a Hunter creation stream and teaching you about that process. So hopefully that'll be educational and entertaining. But thanks for tuning in, Matt. I hope you get over that final vestiges of your cough and come back next week to see the Ravnos or Simitsi.
All right.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye.